Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Kenichi, and welcome to Hometown Heroes. And I am very excited tonight because tonight we're going to celebrate a great moment in time in Derby sports with the 1992 Class S baseball champions. And we have four people who played a big part in that championship. We're here with second baseman Gino DeMauro, assistant coach Steve Riley, head coach John DeFrancisco, and pitcher and shortstop Ben Bartone. And gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's truly an honor.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, Ben and Gino, I'll start with you guys. I don't want to rehash this too much, so we'll just talk about it for a couple minutes. What was the feeling like on Thanksgiving of 1991? You guys had just come off a loss to Shelton, first losing season for Derby in 28 years. I mean, what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, I mean, for me, it was kind of the worst year ever. You know, obviously breaking my arm and missing half of the season. Coming off the year we had prior, you know, number one in the state, 11-0 undefeated. It was really tough. It just that day, you know, sitting there and thinking about everything that's happened, how it could go from one season from being so high, and the next season from being so low. Because we had high expectations for that year. We were going to be pretty good.
Right.
We thought we were going to be pretty good. We had a lot of talent on the team, so it was a tough day.
Right, Gino.
Well, like Ben said, coming off a state championship year, we definitely had high hopes. And in Derby, you're expected to win. And to come off that first losing season in years, it's like you don't know what to feel. We weren't looking ahead at anything really at that point. We were just unfortunately, you know, taking it all in that, you know, what just happened. We weren't used to that feeling.
Right, and you know what's interesting is everything that could go right in 1990 did. Every time it looked like the team was going to lose, they had a bunch of injuries, but they always managed to find a way to win. Where with the 91 team, it seemed like anything that could go wrong for that team did, with Ben getting hurt in the fourth game of the year, David and Roman getting hurt. I mean, you lose two key starters. And it just seemed like, you know, Don Buono plays a great game against Cheshire. The team plays a great game against Cheshire. You guys are up the whole game and you lose at the last minute. It just seemed like nothing wanted to go right that year for you guys. It was like bad luck all the way around.
It was like the year that wasn't supposed to be. You know, we had some key injuries early on, like you mentioned, and unfortunately set the tone for the season, I believe. We had some, you know, people step in, like you said, Dominic stepped in and played phenomenal for us.
Right.
Easily should have beat Cheshire, lost to them in the last couple minutes, but there was a couple of games that we should have won as well, and it just didn't fall our way.
Right. Now, Ben, you had basketball to look forward to, but as you know, in Derby, basketball is not always a successful sport. So, I mean, what was your mindset after? Did you think about baseball? You know, I'm going to try to, you know, make up for what happened to us in football by going into baseball. I mean, were you hoping for a good, you know, basketball season, or were you kind of realistic to know that it was going to have to be baseball?
Yeah, right. Basketball, like you said, it is what it was. You know, Derby was tough. You know, we were a smaller school. You know, in the Housatonic League back then, we had to play all the bigger schools, the double L schools. But baseball was always like, to me, baseball was my sport. You know,
Right.
Even though I played football, I've always been a baseball player first. And had a kind of a bitter taste in my mouth from the prior year. We had a tough loss as a junior
Right.
up in Nonawag. We lost in the final at bat in the second round of the tournament. So I knew coming into this year, you know, this could be our year. We had a lot of kids coming back, and plus we had myself and Don, so we knew we 1-2 punch, you know, pretty solid.
Right. And that wrist was not feeling good after football either,
No.
right? I mean, looking back, you probably came back for the team, but you probably shouldn't have come back for
Yeah, I kind of
those
came
last
back
few
in
games.
football a little too early, I say. In particular, I remember the Sheen game playing at home, which we lost under the lights. I got hit with a helmet pretty good on there, and my whole arm and hand went numb, so I knew that affected it also, too. So.
Right. Steve,
Yeah.
there was some reservations if you were going to return. You had not coached the prior season. You came back, I believe, for the tournament. Did you? I
Yeah.
know you talked to Pete Krasnowski at Thanksgiving, and he was kind of trying to talk you into it. Did you have a good idea you'd be back when the winter came, or were you still undecided?
I had a pretty good idea that I was. I was at that Shelton game, the Shelton football game, and the memory that I had walking away from it was that I saw at the end of the game they removed certain players. And I think it was at the end I saw an image of It was Ben, Donnie, and Gino were on the bench. I don't
Right.
think they played in the final minutes of the game. They were taken out. And that, to me, was an important moment because you really want to battle your way through the end right to the final gun. And I knew how much that would have hurt them, And then Peter didn't play football, so he was coming up to me watching the game.
Right.
We were watching the end of that game. And Pete, he was constantly bugging me. He wanted me to come back. And he said he was going to come back, so he was very enthused. But,
Right.
yeah. It wasn't one of those things where I thought that they were going to win. I mean, coming back. I really thought they had both pitchers back. They had Pete back. I knew they had a good nucleus. Anytime you're pitching back, you're going to have a good nucleus. It was more that I just wanted to come back because of the camaraderie of the coaches and the players. It was that's the one thing I missed.
Right. Gino, I always thought this was kind of an unfair character, of you guys. People tried to refer to that team as losers, but I never saw that because had that been the case, you guys would have just, laid down for the other teams. You guys played hard. You didn't have your quarterback, and I don't care. I mean, you lose that position, chances are it's really going to hurt you. Did you feel like you let anybody down? I mean, it's unfair for anybody to say that, but did you feel like that when you left
Absolutely.
that day?
You always go through the what ifs, what we could have done different. It's kind of hard. I was a football guy first, whereas Ben, his true love was baseball, mine was football.
Right.
From the days back in, the 60s, 70s when my grandfather was the mascot,
Right.
riding the horse down the hill onto
And your
the
father
field.
was a player.
My father
Yeah.
played, and for me, my first love was football. So, you idolize all these legends. We're in the red and white, and you can't wait until you get to put on the uniform and play. And then, going through your high school to, have a losing season your senior year, it's like, what do you do?
Right.
What do you have to look forward to?
Right. Now, John, you went through a unique thing in the winter because you're trying to get ready for the baseball season, and you'd coached with the football team, and Coach DeCenzo was adamant he wanted to turn around that season. He was constantly having team meetings all the time. Was it a little difficult for you to try to get ready for the baseball season when he was meeting with you guys all the time and talking about how we're going to turn this around, this and that? Was it difficult for you to get ready?
Yeah, in a sense it was, but I was an assistant football coach, but I was the head baseball coach.
Right.
And immediately when we lost that game in Shelton, that ended a 28-year streak
Right.
of having non-losing seasons. I immediately felt sorry for the kids who were also baseball players. Gino, Ben, Donnie Shepard played football that year too, his first time. So I said to myself, these poor kids have to deal with that and, the stigma of that. But, I appreciated the fact that, Mr. DeCenzo was really upset about it and they were having meetings. Did it affect me in any way? Yeah, I mean, I contributed what I could. But, my focus was on getting the baseball program ready because I knew that I was going to have to deal with these poor young men whose morale was kind of low and just kind of nurse them along and make them understand that this was a new season, another opportunity to do something on a positive note.
Right. And you'd seen Ben every day. You were talking to him and stuff. You probably saw that wrist 100 times. Did you have your doubts he could be ready for the season?
Well, yeah.
I mean, he had played basketball, but the wrist was still affecting him.
Well, I think I remember the first day we were in the gym. If you correct me if I'm wrong, he was in the batting cage and he swung the bat, right, Coach? And he immediately stepped out of the cage. The pain was searing. He said it was just like when he broke his wrist or his arm, and he kind of walked out of there with tears in his eyes. So Steve was the one who told me, as a matter of fact, I think you should take him home and find out, bring him to, talk to his parents, have him go, was it Dr. Lynch?
Lewis.
Dr. Lewis. I said, Mr. and Mrs. Bartone, I said, please take your son to Dr. Lewis.
Right.
And Ryle said to me, see what extent if he could just pitch, if he could just play the field, if he could hit, see what extent he could see what extent he could give us as far as a baseball player. And that's what we did. And his mother and father were very, very they're receptive to that idea. And they took him, right, the next day.
yeah.
And he found out that there were adhesions.
Right.
That
The
he
scar
had-
tissue had to be loosened.
The scar tissue. So I think we started with a wiffle ball bat, if I'm not mistaken. And he hit wiffle balls for a period of time. And then finally the adhesions broke. And he became, the player that he was.
Right. Ben, were you having some doubts when, say, the first week of practice started? I mean, did you go home thinking, you know what, I'm not going to be able to
Yeah.
give 100%?
I did. It really hit me that day in the cage. I mean, the pain was unbearable. I mean, first time since breaking my my arm. But it's the wrist that was more of the problem because it never healed right.
Right.
So that motion of swinging a bat and trying to turn your hand over, being the first time doing that in the cage that day, it was just, wow, I was like in shock. So I was down a little bit at first. I'm like, am I going to be able to hit? Am I going to be able to turn my hand enough to play the field and to get my glove because it's my glove hand?
Right.
So there was a lot of things going through my mind at that time.
Right. Gino, you obviously had big expectations for this season, but you weren't guaranteed a starting position going into that season. I think you and Joey Guyon, you guys really had to work hard to, get a starting position. So what was your mindset in the winter? Like, I had heard you and Joey had went to a camp in the summer to improve.
Joey went to the camp, but starting as soon as football season was over, Donnie and I did not play basketball.
Right.
So we would go to a hitting camp, clinic in North Haven. Cages, we'd do some hitting during basketball season, to get ourselves ready. And, going into it, we knew that we had two good pitchers. Ben could play shortstop as well as Donnie.
Right.
Other than that, Pete in center field, every other position was open. So,
Right.
we were just trying to work our butts off and, get out there and see what we could do to help and provide, for that team.
Right. And you had some difficult decisions to make because I think you guys flirted with possibly having Pete Krzyzanowski be the catcher. You weren't sure if you wanted to go with Joe Lisa. He was only a freshman. Basically, how did you two and Coach Tools come to the decision to, bring him up early?
Charles, you want to go?
Well, we knew that Joe Lisa had a reputation of being a good player already. We heard stories
Right.
about him playing in Sandy Koufax ball and things. So we knew that was a possibility, and we took a lot of information from Pete as well because Pete was close friends with him. I think they lived not far from each other. So Pete
Right.
would tell us, could Joey do the job and so on. And it didn't take long. We knew once we got out on the field, we knew that Joey could probably do the job catching. We had experienced pitchers, which means a lot more than
Right.
if we didn't have experienced pitchers. So they could easily deal with having the freshman catcher. Pete, when we knew we needed a center fielder, Pete was like a utility guy. He played the outfield the year before. He could even play the infield sometimes and then catch. So we knew that Pete, being that athletic, can probably play center field. But it was up in the air in the beginning in the sense of we had usually determined a lot from the year before on the prom day. Because on prom day, what John and I would normally do is the year before, when the seniors had their prom, we would coach the JVs.
Right.
And the both of us would go out there and work with the JVs hard and give them a good workout and then gauge what's going to happen for the following season. So I remember we gave Gino like about 100 ground balls, at second base,
Right.
left, right, center, and he was just enthusiastic and he did it. So we knew a lot. Joey G, we knew as we called him Joey G at the time.
Right.
We knew that he was out there, so he was battling away. And so that gave us a little bit of a gauge for the following year. And then it just took its time. We had to get everybody out there. Decisions, we were talking about decisions. One time I remember we were in the cafeteria, the faculty lounge, and a lot of guys were trying to sneak towards our door to listen to what we were saying.
Right.
As we were talking
I was
about-
one of them.
and we were talking about, if Ben, we wanted to know, can Ben pitch, can Ben bat, can Ben play short?
Right.
And we were going to put him wherever he was able to do. We knew he was going to be the better player at that position. So we were going to say, okay, how do we deal with wherever he is going to end up? And then we were talking about who's going to be here, who's going to be at second, who's going to be at third, who's going to be in the outfield. And I remember George Satulio was in on that conversation. I think I remember Ronnie Leno walking up and down the hallway telling us
Right.
that people were outside listening. And
Glass to the door.
so we were, sort of aware of that, but we knew we had a bunch of kids who really were enthusiastic about the game, and that matters a lot. When you got kids that are, can have tears in their eyes to get on the field, that's the kind of player we wanted on the field. And,
Right.
So anyway, we were going to be able to do it. We were going to get them on the field. We were going to get Ben on the field somewhere.
Right.
And just a matter of where and for how long.
Right, and Ben, you had made All-State the previous year at third base, so that had to be a sacrifice on your part. You did what was good for the team. Were you a little hesitant to move to short, or it didn't matter? You were going to do what was going to help the team?
Not for 1 second. I just liked being out there playing no matter where I was.
Right,
It was always team first.
right. Now, Coach Steve, explain this to me. What were the expectations going into the season for you? You had Ben and Donnie coming back, but you had a young team. You still didn't know who was even going to be in the outfield, as Coach Steve
Correct.
mentioned. So what kind of expectations did you have for this team? Was it make the tournament and see what happens?
Yeah, I
or-
thought we could make the tournament because if pitching is like, 70% of the game, we had the two kids that won all the games
Right,
the year before. The sacrifice that Ben made, though, because he was All-State,
right,
that really showed me that this was a unique team because he never hesitated. You had an all-star,
right,
an all-state third baseman who you wanted to play short. And the positions are very different, as we know, and he never questioned it once. As far as Gito, we knew that Gito was working very hard at second base,
right,
and in preseason, he seemed like he showed that he was able to do what he was supposed to do at second. And Joey G, he went down to LSU. He became a sound fielder, and we were pretty well set. With Peter was the center fielder. We had the Massey was in left, Mike Massey, and
Right.
then right was
David and
David Ann Roman, and George Hay was at first.
Mm-hmm.
Now those two kids, they didn't play the year before. I don't think. David didn't play,
I don't think so.
and
I
George
think
didn't
George
play.
had an injury the year before,
Yeah,
right?
he didn't play. So those were two positions that we were skeptical about. But we knew that David was a good athlete, and I knew that we had a senior team that would kind of help them along. They helped Joey Leza along too.
Right,
So, because Joey was young, and they kind of took him under their wing, and they encouraged them all the time. That was the nice thing about this team, that it wasn't just individuals. This was a real team. I had been involved with teams that might have a little more talent, but they didn't play as a team. This
Right.
group played as a team, so I thought we had something special.
right. Now, Steve, is it true that D can't relax before a game? I mean, you talked about that. You talked about that first game, and he wouldn't even eat. You had to get him to eat. So just talk about
I think
talk
part
about
of
what
it-
it's like with John D
No, it was
before
like,
a game.
actually, part of it was he was very intense, and he always wanted to win. And he wanted to create a niche for baseball in Derby.
Right,
And there's a lot of pressure. He was coming off the fact that his dad was the head coach for many, many years.
right,
So there was a lot of, I'm sure he had that anxiety, but he wouldn't eat. And we had to try always pick up a sandwich for him on the way back. It's a full belly deli, Shelton or whatever. And pick up a sandwich for him just to eat something because, at times, I would notice that he was just nervous about what was going to take place. And, when you're intense, a lot of little stuff can bother you,
Right.
whether the field is ready in time. And there's a big difference, Mike, between being a head coach and of any program. You got all the other things to worry about: personnel, equipment, fields,
right,
listening to your athletic director, and so on. So there's just a lot to it, it's a lot less on an assistant, and so I was able to try to relax him a bit.
right. So the season starts off well. I believe you guys win your first game of the year, and I think right off the bat, Joey Leza, the first game, hit a home run, if I'm not mistaken. So right away, you saw that he wasn't going to let the pressure get to him. He wasn't worried that he was a freshman. He had the confidence. But talk about, what are some of the key games early on that you thought were a turning point for this team?
I thought the Sheldon game, we won pretty big. I think it was 13-3 or
12-4? 12-4 maybe?
12-4.
Right.
I can't remember, but that showed me something that we were pretty good, and North Haven we got beat, but Ben I think struck out 80 people that game.
Right.
So I said, "Oh my God!" Even to get Bob DeMeo, I think he set the record
For most wins,
for most wins,
Right.
and Ben had struck out 18 people, and
Right.
he wasn't even that jubilant about winning. He won it the way he's always won games: bunt, maybe make an error, a steal, a timely base hit. But he struck out 18 guys, and he walked up to you and shook
Yes.
He never saw anything like it. But then when we played him in North Haven, you struck out 15 again.
Yes. And we
So-
still lost.
And we
So
still lost.
So I think, Ben just was hard luck, and what was scaring me was the fact that he started to doubt himself a little bit. As a pitcher, I think we started out 1-4 or
Yeah.
1. And he said, "Well, what's the matter with me?" Or he might have said it to Steve, and I said, "Nothing. You're pitching against all the good teams."
Right.
And the way it fell, Donnie was pitching against, not the weaker teams, but the less, the less quality teams. And I said it's all going to even out in the end. Thank God I was right, because if it didn't, we wouldn't have won the state tournament.
Right.
Yeah, I think the goal every year, we had a goal every year, was make the state tournament. That was the primary goal.
Right.
So we knew which teams, were going to be the more difficult teams, which teams we were going to be more competitive against. How do we line up the pitching to do that?
Right.
Or how do we line up our defense and hitting and so on? And we knew early on that we were going to hit the ball and we were going to run. I mean, we had some kids that
Right.
were really quick, that could run the bases, and so we knew that we were going to be difficult. I think early on, first 3-4 games, we knew, hey, we're going to have a shot at this.
Right.
And from my perspective, it was like I just wanted to do everything I could not to blow it. You know what I mean? It's like as a coach, you don't want to blow it. I mean, you're saying, okay, what do we do to make sure this happens?
Right.
So we ultimately got there when we beat Cheshire of all teams, who was very good in that era.
Right.
And it was. I don't think we had any visions of doing much else beyond the tournament initially. We knew the year before we went to the second round we should have been in the quarters and that kind of thing. But the question was, our primary focus early was get to the tournament some way, somehow. Because back then you had to win 10 games, and winning it in the Houstonic League was
very
not
tough.
easy.
Right.
It was not easy
Yeah.
for an S school and a dominant M and double L and L school league. So.
Right. Were you guys surprised? I had mentioned this before, but were you surprised how good Joey Leza was hitting the ball? I mean, again, he's a freshman and he has talent, but still a freshman. And I mean, he was just hitting the ball like crazy.
Yeah, I think he kind of stuck up on people. I didn't think he was a big kid, but people didn't know what to expect from him.
Right.
And yet, I think Joe had great hand-eye coordination, and I think that helped him out a lot, So, his uncle was Ernie DeStacy,
Right.
who, worked with him when he was younger. So, like I said, I was surprised he hit as well as he did, but I wasn't surprised that he hit the ball. The surprises that I like, but Joey Guyon,
Yeah.
because there's two things I recalled about Joey Guyon as I was driving here. Joey Guyon got the home run against Cheshire
Right.
to win the 10th game. Then Joey Guyon got the game-winning hit
Right.
in the state championship to put us ahead by 2 runs. So
Right.
here's a kid that didn't play at all, and he played well enough to get us those 2 big victories. And then Gito, once you found out that he could play, it was real easy to put the second baseman down as Gito and just put, I think in the 8th spot he batted, but
Right.
he was another one. He got a lot of clutch hits in that spot, so that made things a lot easier. And all we had to do, because Ben, like I said, he played shortstop and Donnie pitched, and
Yeah.
we just flip-flopped.
Right.
That Donnie played short. Because Riles he convinced me of this, that to switch a lot of players is very, very difficult. So he says, "D, you don't want to do that.
Right.
If you could just flip flop one position, it made it a lot easier." And because of Ben and Donnie, we were able to do just that.
Right.
It made things less complicated.
Well, getting back to Joe Lisa, Mike, I mean, if you look at our batting lineup, it was the top 3 kids were the kids that came back from the year before,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Pete led off, Ben batted second, Donnie Shepard batted third,
Right.
So then Joe Lisa didn't sneak up on us. I mean, we were a little surprised, sure, but I pitched to him in the batting cage, so I knew what he could do,
Right.
because he could hit the ball very hard. He snuck up on the teams because he hit a grand slam, I think, against like Sheehan or something,
Right.
and then the next day or 2 days later, the Wallingford teams apparently didn't talk to each other because he had a grand slam against Lyman Hall. So he snuck up on it. He snuck up on everybody else. And the other one that really protected Joey, that came around and hit the ball very well, was George Hay.
Right.
I mean,
Another
George Hay
dangerous hitter.
became a very, very big power hitter throughout that time. So, we knew what the top 3 guys could do. We knew
Right.
they were going to hit the ball, they were going to get on, they were going to run, they could steal, they could hit and run, they could do everything. But once we knew Joey could hit for power, and then they were walking Donnie Shepard intentionally to pitch to Joey.
Right.
And that's when they found out right away that was a mistake. So the first round, the first time we played the teams, it was a big sneak up. Not the second time. Second time they knew exactly what we could do in
Right.
playing them. So the real key was to sustain it and to get 10 wins, which was the big goal.
Right. Now, Gino, I think you and Joey Guyon struggled early. The first half of the season, hitting-wise, wasn't great for you guys, but you guys were playing very well in the field. Did you have any doubts about yourself each game, or were you confident and satisfied what you were doing?
We knew that it was early on, and adjusting to varsity ball from JV ball, and the competition, every game, in that Housatonic League
Right.
was a dogfight. Very good teams, but we knew that if we practiced hard, kept at it, we were going to be where we needed to be,
Right.
and just working hard, and eventually, we were there and just like making the plays, and it was nothing.
Right.
But I credit Jocko Vayet. Jocko was our JV coach at the time, and Jocko worked with me and Joey and the rest of the guys that came up to varsity. And he didn't get a lot of credit with that, but he deserves it, and he worked our butts off. He
Right.
got us to where we need to be to move up.
Right. And
Yeah, not to
Jocko-
forget George Zatulio
And
also.
Coach
Yeah,
Tools.
Right.
Tools was a big motivator on that team. He would constantly challenge the players.
Yes.
I mean,
Have
you
a
guys
day.
have to attest to that.
Have a
more.
day.
Show me
constantly
something,
challenge.
16.
Yeah, have a day.
Have a day.
He had constantly challenged the
And it was
players.
kind of a role reversal in a way, coach, because you could be the motivator for the football team because you weren't the head coach. So you could be that type of guy to get them pumped up.
Right.
But as the head coach, you couldn't do that like you could in football. You had to kind of, be the head coach. So you had Coach DeTulio doing
Yeah.
that for you guys.
Well,
know.
like I said, I said one time to you in another interview, we were walking the track one day and he was kind of quiet, and I asked him what the problem was, and he said, "I don't know how much I really helped this baseball team because it's you and Riles. You do you fungo, you do Riles throws. Riles throws batting practice. Riles fungos. He works with the outfielders. What's my role?" I said, "Don't belittle what you do because you do a lot.
Right.
You relate to the kids,
Yes.
and the kids can find something with you that maybe they can't find with me or Coach Riley." And they would go to him, and he was the kind of person that he had a temperament where he was patient with the kids, and he liked to fool with the kids, but and they could relate to him, and he
Right.
could relate to them. And so, like, it took me one lap before he even said anything. I said to him, "You're not buying into this?" He said,
Right.
"Of course I'm buying into it." And he said, "Thank you." I said, "Thank you for what
Right.
you do for us."
He'd get us fired up like it was football games.
Yeah, he would.
Right.
Because
Seriously.
don't forget, he's working a swing shift. You don't know whether you're going to get him 3 to 11, 11 to 7,
Right.
7 to 3. I mean, whatever he gave you was a bonus.
Right.
But, whatever he gave us, and I'm sure that Steve appreciated it just as much as I did. and Jocko too, and everybody else. He just fit.
Right.
And the kids, like I said, the kids loved him, and the kids respected him, and that's the big thing. You know, that's why I think
Right.
he was so effective.
See, one of the things you have to appreciate, Mike, from watching these guys is that whatever we asked them to do, they never said like, "Well, we don't want to do that," or
Why?
you know, why, or what's going to happen. They knew that we were trying to do the best we could for them, so they
Right.
appreciated that. But I can tell you this much: we asked a lot. I mean, if you think about what Ben was able to accomplish that year, we were saying, okay, you might pitch Wednesday, and if it rains, you might pitch Thursday.
Yeah.
Right.
And Donnie might pitch Monday, Friday, or there might be a week where you're doing Monday, Friday, but if Donnie gets in trouble on Wednesday, you're coming in to pitch on Wednesday.
Right.
Right.
So, you know, with all these new rules now with pitch counts and inning
We would've been
limitations, back then
trouble.
the only limitation was you can only pitch 10 innings in 3 days. And you're talking about, you know, what we were asking Ben to do was pitch a lot of times, say on a Monday, and then relief pitch on Wednesday,
Right.
a couple innings. And then if, you know, God forbid if it rained, then we
Right.
really, if you look at the end of the season, we only had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 innings by anybody other than Donnie Shepard and Ben Bartone. I mean, those were the only 2 guys that pitched.
Right.
So grind it out. The other guys in the field had to grind it out, you know. But you know, the pitching. I mean, the guys who had to pitch, you know, Ben and Donnie. You know, we did ask a lot of them, but they really thrived in it. You know, they just did
Right.
what they wanted to do. And because I do remember a game where I used to hit infield and Ben broke his nose. And I
Shelton
felt-
game
Show
and
me.
warm-ups.
and
warm-ups.
I felt really bad because I hit a ground ball and it took a bad hop and he broke his nose, and so he was literally playing shortstop
With cotton in
with
there.
cotton in his nose and stuff.
That was a 13-3 game wherever we beat
Yeah,
them.
at home.
at Ryan Field, and then I think he got 3 hits in the game.
Yeah.
You know, running around the bases with all this cotton stuffed in his face. So, you know, we knew that we had that gritty was going to be a big thing on our team. That we were going to be a very gritty team.
Right.
And that usually, you know, as the so-called saying goes, gritty beats pretty. So, you know, we were a very gritty team, you know, that year.
Right.
Because when Ryle said he broke his nose, I said, well,
It's just my nose.
We
It's
got-
not like my hand or
I
anything.
said like that. I said, get the medicine, kid. We had a couple of Band-Aids in there just to make it look good. We
I took 7 stitches in the chin.
7 stitches in the chin, yeah.
seven
yeah.
stitches in
Right,
the chin.
good, yeah.
Then we came back to Bradford, turned 3 double plays.
Right, he came
Yeah.
in. I said, well,
Yeah.
we'll put a couple
great
of
infield
butterfly
at,
Band-Aids.
Ryan.
That's it. But Ben and Gito Ben, just put the cotton up his nose. So he's breathing into his mouth, blood's coming on shortstop. I said, hey, he's gonna be all right by the second inning.
He's good.
He'll be
He's good.
Now
He's
they would
good.
never let him play.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't-
Now,
they wouldn't let
forget
me play. They saw blood today.
No,
Right.
no.
But Ben, let me ask you. I wanted to talk about the North Haven game, but before I do, he mentioned the broken nose. You know, did you ever start to think, God, has somebody got something against me? I break my wrist. I'm pitching, you know, giving up 1 or 2 runs a game, and I can't get a win. This happens to your nose, and then the North Haven game, you get 18 strikeouts and you lose. I mean, did you think somebody had it out for you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it just nothing was going right. You know, we were still winning as a team, but me individually, like I said, it was a tough start for me. Like as far as wins and losses. But yeah, the North Haven game was tough because you don't think that you strike out 18 out of 21 batters and you lose the game.
Right.
I remember being dejected up in the clubhouse after the game, and then Riles came up to me and made an excellent speech to all of us, saying that to be proud of what I
Right.
accomplished, and I put my heart and soul out there. It was a good moment, even though we lost, but it's something I'll always remember about that day.
Right. You talk about some of the other players on this team, and, David Ann Roman stepped up as a first-year player. Mike Massey's very underrated. People forget about him sometimes. Very good left fielder, very good. And then you got to talk about some of the role players. I look at a guy like Richie Calver, who always came in to run for you guys. He was always big at doing that, very good. I think Ken Cronk, as a sophomore, came in a couple times, did a nice job for you guys. And, I mean, you had a senior like Carlos Ortiz who probably wasn't playing a lot, but he was still doing his part in practice and trying to help the team. So I think you guys had unselfish players on this team as well, because everybody was about the team, not about themselves.
Well, you might remember, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but I'm sure the guys do. We had a guy who came to almost every practice and every game named Mickey.
Yes,
And,
Mickey.
he would
Great
pick up
guy.
the foul balls for
Ruggiero.
us, bring him, And the kids really took
Kids.
to him. They really, talked to this elderly gentleman who came to every game. They were always friendly with him. He used to bring him ice creams and stuff, and
Right.
they really liked him. So, I mean, those were unique kids who can warm up to a guy who just shows up and just picks up foul balls for you.
Right.
So,
Didn't we buy him a jacket?
yeah.
I believe we did.
We gave him a
I
jacket.
believe we did.
The kids said, "Can't we do something for Mickey?" So I think he got a Derby baseball jacket,
Right.
and that was the kids who wanted to do that. So
Right.
you'll be surprised what kids will do. They'll step up when you least expect it. That's like one of the joys you get out of coaching because, yeah, it's tough sometimes, but sometimes it's really nice. It's
Right.
a wonderful experience, because now when I see Gino, I could look at him and say, hey, I was part of his life. When I look at Ben, I can say, hey, I was part of his life.
Right.
Donnie Shepard, those guys, you see those kids on the street now, they're men.
Right.
And they've grown into responsible people. And if I could say I had this much to do with that, that makes me feel proud,
Right.
So I'm sure Steve feels the same
Yeah,
way
exactly.
about that.
The nice thing about these guys was that whenever we made a mistake, because they a lot of times they would notice it. I mean, we weren't hiding it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And they would pick us up at times. They would say, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to get him next time, or we're going to do this. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. And as a coach, that's incredible because now it allows you to now coach without worrying about whether or not you're going to make the right move or not. We were already worried enough
Right.
that we weren't going to
Right.
screw this thing up. So it was like to have players come up and tell you that's really where it hits to the heart.
Right. You guys were, I think, 9-7, maybe 9-6 going into the Cheshire game, and you guys have a good idea you're going to make the tournament, but you need to get that 10th win no matter what. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't expect it to be against Cheshire. Number one, Donnie Shepard pitched a tremendous game that day, and then of course Joey Guyon, who, like I said, wasn't known for his power, hits a walk-off home run. I mean, talk about that game and just the emotions that went through that game, Gino.
We knew it was going to be a battle, obviously Cheshire to start with, and knowing that we needed that game, we really didn't think much about who we were playing that day. We just went out there and played. So all we wanted to go out there, play our best every game. I remember that game specifically. I think I bunted maybe two games all year, and they called me D wants
Put
me
him
to
down.
bunt, so I laid down a sacrifice bunt, and I'm like, okay, I think we got Joey over, Mike over the third at that point.
Michael over the third.
Ends
yeah.
up scoring on that. So, we just put us in
Right.
there. We'll play. We were going to play hard no matter who it was, and beating a team like Cheshire and getting the 10th win against Cheshire. I mean, we had a feeling at that point that hey, we're going to go into this tournament hot, and some, as they say for teams, being hot at the end, that's what you want. And we were hot at the end. We were feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
We were very confident. And the coach just said, with us, it really wasn't like a player-coach relationship. We really had like a family bond.
Right.
Knowing these guys our whole lives, it's like they ask us to do it, we do it, no questions asked. And sometimes we just did it without them even saying it. We knew, we were what we were supposed to do. We were like in pace with them step for step, and it was just a great season. And to get that against Cheshire, like I said, that was awesome.
Right.
I give Tools a lot of credit for that Cheshire game because he couldn't make it that game. And
Right.
I remember that. He had to work. But Donnie Shepard was thinking about, I don't know if you remember this, John. Donnie was thinking about not pitching that game because we had won the 9th game.
Right.
And then the question was, well, should we go after the 10th win against Cheshire
Yeah.
on short rest? And it was George who then said to Donnie, as I recall, that no, we got to pitch Donnie that game. Donnie, you should want this game. You should pitch. So John made the decision to pitch Donnie Shepard against Cheshire. Donnie was thinking about stepping back, not pitching, maybe taking a rest, and trying to win the next game.
Right.
And but Donnie ended up pitching that game, did very well. I remember he had the bases loaded at one time with nobody out, and he was able to get out of it. And for Donnie, it was a personal best because he had pitched in the American Legion season the year before against Cheshire, and he had the bases loaded and nobody out. He wasn't successful. So to get those bases loaded out, he came off the mound that time and he said, I redeemed myself from that game. So
Right.
so Donnie ended up winning. That was Joey's day to shine. Joey Guyon's
Yes, it
day to
was.
shine. and John's day to step on Gino's goggles.
Yeah. Gino wore these goggles. I mean, I don't know why, because he caught everything, and I said, "Why is he wearing goggles?"
Did you step on him? Tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Now the truth is told.
Not only did I step on him, I buried him. So I said, "That's it. My second baseman is not playing with goggles on."
Joey G had the glass cleat. I had no glasses.
That's it.
Right.
No, but that, yeah, but Tools. Another time, Riles and I were talking. It was a game where Ben was like struggling a little bit, so we're kind of torn about taking him out, leaving him in. So Riles said, "Well, maybe we should take him out." I said, "Yeah, maybe you're right."
Was that the Portland game?
Portland game. So this is so. Here comes Tools. He says, "You're not going to take Ben out, are you?"
No,
I said,
you're not thinking about it.
he said, "You're not thinking about taking Ben out." He said, "No, that didn't even cross our mind." Tools. Don't worry about it. So this is like when I said, when he said, he didn't factor into anything. He certainly did.
right.
Yeah.
He certainly did. He was.
But
Yeah,
see, that
he
was the
was
thing.
just
The one thing this team was so unique about was when Joey Guyon hit the ball over the fence. That was his first home run ever in his life.
Right.
And the pile on the play was something incredible. It was like the seventh game of the World
I know.
Series.
Yes.
Right.
When he stepped on home plate and to win it against a quality team like Cheshire at the time.
And plus, we never experienced the walk.
No,
all my
no.
years of playing,
Yeah.
I never experienced a walk-off win.
Right.
So
Walk off win. Yeah.
that was the first one.
yeah.
What was the feeling like, Ben,
Oh, it was
after
aw- it
everything
was
you
awesome.
went through? And I know
It was awesome.
D grabbed you aside, and
Yeah,
you
it's,
kind of had a good moment with D.
You get that feeling like now you finally accomplished something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You win 10 games and you're like, it's your senior year. You're going to make the tournament. Now We knew once we got into the tournament, anything could happen because we played the better competition through the year.
Yeah.
Right.
The smaller S schools didn't play the caliber of teams that we played all year. And
Right.
we knew we had myself and Don, so we were feeling pretty good about it.
And it had to be a great feeling to beat a team like Cheshire because they're a powerhouse. They've
Yeah,
always
they-
been you didn't just, you didn't beat Platt Tech or
No.
somebody like that in the tournament. You beat,
No. Right.
a horse in the tournament.
Right.
So, I mean, that had to be a great feeling as
And
well.
with Joey, it was even better because here's a kid who was a very quiet kid,
Yeah.
but came to play every single day. Like I said, with him and I coming up from JV, and it was just a great feeling for him. He deserved it, well deserved.
Right.
And then Gino got a big hit in the championship game. Texas Leaguer, that kept the inning going. And
Do they still say that, Texas League?
Yeah,
D can.
No, here's what I can say. He hit a line drive to right. It was a screaming line drive
Screamer.
to right field. And he kept the inning going. But one of the best pictures that I remember is when Ben beat
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas
Thomas.
Aquinas, and they captured a picture of him jumping on the mound.
Right.
And he was about that high off the ground. He was so excited that they were like one of the favorites. No, Coach.
Yeah, St. Thomas had
Yeah,
they had
so-
the Gatorade player of the year.
He had a Gatorade Player of the
Right.
Year.
Yeah.
And Ben, like I said, we listened to the kids. And I remember in the seventh inning,
He wanted to walk him.
did you want to walk him?
I don't know if it was me or you.
Well, I think I wanted you to pick. You said walk him, but we were going to walk the tying run.
Right.
I think you said walk him,
Okay.
and the fifth batter he struck him out.
Right.
So I remember saying to Riles, I said, "Thank God he struck out the fifth batter because he would have got."
Let me ask you this, though, Coach. Have you ever had a better 1-2 punch in Benny and Donnie? Because, I mean, you had two aces on your team, and that's a coach's dream in any
Yeah.
level. I mean, you had two guys, either one could step up and,
Yeah.
dominate a game. Talk about Ben and Donnie and the
Well,
great.
you asked me if there was the only other comparison I could make, and I'm sure Coach Riley could back me up with it, was probably Wazakowski and McCormick
Right.
when they
Yeah,
pitched.
yeah.
Because don't forget
Or
those
Davis and Stonehouse.
or Davis and Stonehouse. What Wazakowski and McCormick did was one pitch, the other one caught. Then when
Right.
the other kid pitched, I remember Coach Fay taking out McCormick and then putting in Waz, and then McCormick would put the catching gear on. But they were very comparable to those two. And then, like Steve said, Stonehouse and Davis.
Right.
But Stoney, his senior year, he wasn't as effective because he had pulled the muscles, coach, or something like that.
Yeah.
And Davis and Stoney, I mean, we had two good pitchers. I think the nice thing about coaching in Derby that I could be proud of, and I'm sure he could be proud of, is when we had the couple of good pitchers, we won, and I think that was important. Because I always thought that if you didn't walk a lot of people and you made mediocre teams swing the bat, good things were going to happen. And that's what happened.
Right.
See, one of the things, Mike, about Ben and Donnie that were so quality is that teams that played us knew that they were not going to have a game where our second line kid was going to be
Right.
in there, no matter who they got, whether they got
Right.
Ben or Donnie. They were getting a frontline pitcher that they had to beat.
And you mentioned that you might have had one kid pitch 2 innings the whole year, and the rest was these guys.
The rest
It
was these
Ben
guys.
and Don.
So, I mean, but on top of it, even the games we lost, those were close games. I mean, it
Right.
wasn't like, so we were just fortunate that, that we didn't mess up. At least I think that myself personally at times.
Sure.
That we didn't mess it up, so they didn't win 10 games. We ended up winning 12, so we were quite happy about that. At least
Right.
saying, hey, it wasn't like it came down to one game at the end, which is why once we won the 10th game, then the team started to get better because they started playing relaxed. They started playing even more relaxed than they did, and we could refine our game and the small things that we could get better at. And then we went into the tournament like a steamroller, like coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know-
the nice thing about those two guys, Donnie and Ben, I don't think they liked each other. There was no
Right.
envy there.
Right.
When Donnie pitched, Ben pulled for him. When Ben
Right.
pitched, Donnie pulled for him.
And they were good friends off
Right.
the
Oh yeah,
field.
they were
Absolutely, yeah.
great friends off
Right,
the field.
which-
That was a close knit team.
Right.
Yeah.
And Gino, I look at you and Joey Guyon because I believe
Right.
you two were best friends at the time in school, and you two were kind of like Ben and Donnie were bonded by their pitch, and you and him were bonded by you guys really had to fight
And
for
working
your
hard
spots.
to get a
Right.
spot,
And
earn
you
a spot.
two-
Yes.
You two probably brought out the best in each other. So I mean, that's definitely about this team too. Is like I said, it didn't matter who the star was. Everybody was friends, and you guys
Yes.
looked at each other like
Very
brothers.
excited for whoever did well that day, whoever had the day. We're excited for them. Like they were just saying, I think Donnie would get more upset that Ben was having a rough time than excited for himself that he was doing good. And that's just the way we were. We were always there for each other, and I think that helped us out a lot. That close bond, because
Right.
nobody wants to. We want to play your best all the time, every second, and you want to do it for each other too. So
Yeah, these guys never complained at each other whenever there was a mistake. If they made a physical mistake, like an error or something, these guys never said, hey, what are you doing? I mean,
Right.
they were always like, oh, I'll get the next guy for you, or I'll do this for you. That's the kind of camaraderie they had, which makes it a lot easier to play defense when you could play all out and not worry about, hey, if I make a mistake, I'm going to blow this game. So the fact that they, even when Ben would lose a game, it's not like he came into the locker room and said, well, I lost this because so-and-so didn't do this or
There's
so-and-so
no
did
finger
that.
pointing.
No, he always came in and said, well, what did I do wrong? What could I do
Right.
better
Right.
to win the next one? So, and that's really what this team was all about. They were very unselfish,
Right.
very unselfish group of kids.
Now, Coach, I think this was probably your 4th tournament appearance, maybe your 3rd in 5 years or 6 years as a coach. And I mean, like you said, the year before, you really had high expectations, and
Yeah.
it really didn't happen for you. So it was, we got to win this, right? I mean, that was the attitude
Well-
you had once you got there.
Well, I remember I'm talking to Riles, like during the Cheshire game, I got sick. I couldn't breathe.
Right.
I felt like I had an anxiety attack of some sort. And I remember riding the bus home, and I said to myself, Jesus, man, this is it for me. I might not do this anymore. And then, when Steve said he was going to come back, and I said, well, that's good. Then maybe we'll try again. And we just put it together, and that was nice, because I thought '91 we had a real good
91 was the team.
91.
91 we were stacked.
I think we
Right.
were stacked.
We had the athletes.
We had the
Yeah.
most. That was the most
Yeah.
talent that I think I had
Right.
coaching.
Right.
Joey
we were
Martin, Johnny and Roman,
Yeah.
Pat
Yeah.
McMahon, Mike Smetana. We had a lot of
Right.
stacked. Right.
all seniors. We had a senior laden team and
Yeah.
had experience. We thought that was the year.
Right.
Yeah. So when we got beat, that was like devastating, because, I said to myself, can we get close again to do it?
Right.
And then we did, and the next year it was just like a fairy tale ride.
Well, that was the day. That was the day that the last batter to take a batting practice at Ryan Field before we left to go to the Nottawa game hit a fly ball that somehow ended up hitting Donnie Shepard right off his pitching hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he had his hand in ice going up to the game that he's supposed to pitch. So it ended up that Donnie threw so many innings, and Ben came in,
Yeah.
and then I think he got squeezed a little bit. by the holding umpire, I
Absolutely.
would
Got
say, you know.
squeezed. It was a strike.
It was
Yeah.
Strike three.
Wrong job.
Wow.
So I mean, in the end, we ended up walking away,
Yeah.
not victorious, but it left to the kids coming back the belief that they could
Right.
do
It was like unfinished
so-
business. So
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Ben, did you, Gino, Donnie, and the guys, did you meet regularly after practice and stuff and just talk about, what we got to do next? Or was it just kind of, we don't need to talk, we'll just play and, go home after that? We don't, we do our
Yeah.
talking on the field. And
No,
stuff.
not as much, but we all
Right.
hung out together.
Right.
So we would always go out and hang out, and we would talk about it. Not a lot. That's how we were. We kind of kept everything like on the field. We never really took things off the field with us. If it win or lose, we just knew when it was time to step on the field.
Right.
We would give it our all and play our hardest.
Now, when the tournament was beginning, were you confident now in how you were doing and things like that? Had all those anxieties disappeared by
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
point?
I was confident in the fact that knowing from listening to the coaches and telling us, in the back of your mind, now you're in the tournament. Okay, so now, like I said, the competition is as hard as what we faced all year.
Right.
So I knew that if we were on top of our game, which we were, I don't think we gave up many runs through the whole tournament besides the championship game.
Right.
I think up to the championship game, we might have gave up maybe 3 total runs in 4 games.
Right.
So we were confident and things were going good, So we knew that just getting into that championship game, the good things were going to happen.
Right. And Gino, the year before, you didn't really get a lot of playing time, so you didn't get to experience the tournament. Now you're going to get to experience this. What was the feeling like for you? I mean, you had to be pumped.
It was, obviously our junior year, losing in the tournament, we're there, we're watching it, we're seeing it transpire in front of us, and you're just hoping for, you get a break your senior
Right.
year. You get into the tournament, get your 10 wins, get in, and see what happens from there. So, yeah, it was, upsetting that, our junior season ended the way it did because we could have easily been back-to-back state champs. But it gave us a little fight for our senior year as well. Once we got in, that we
Right.
didn't want to have it end the way our junior year did.
Right. Steve, it had to be a great feeling. You didn't coach really the year before. You came back
Yeah.
at the end. So it had to be a good feeling that your first year back and you guys have a chance to do something special.
Oh, absolutely. I just had the opportunity again to be out there and to coach and be with John and be the other guys and the players. I mean, to me, that was the most satisfying thing was I get to do it again.
Right.
Because you never know what year you can do it, what year you can't do it. I mean, it was very satisfying just to be out there and to watch it unfold. You
Right.
know, I had the unique perspective of being the third base coach, so I got every game to talk to players as they got to the base bag.
And plus, you guys develop relationships with these kids. You have
Sure.
to.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
you're
Yeah,
with
sure.
them every day.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
It stops from becoming about, it's not an ego thing. You're not.
No,
you want
no.
to see them win because you've coached them all
Sure,
year.
sure. I mean, I remember watching.
Who do you
Ben
think
Lilly.
ate D's sandwich every day at practice when he wouldn't eat it?
They didn't even eat it. They
He
got
would
to
bring
eat
him a
it.
sandwich every day, and we would eat it because he wouldn't eat it.
They would eat the rest of it. Yeah,
I said,
yeah,
look, they're
okay,
not
but
nervous.
No.
They weren't nervous. They were hungry.
They were hungry.
So yeah, I would bring D a sandwich for every game, and he'd take a few bites, and then the rest of it he would toss back to the players.
Yeah.
And they would
Yeah.
down whatever was left, and
I wish they did that now.
Right.
yeah.
Well, you know what? We're just scratching the surface because in part 2, we're going to get to hear about this great team that so many people got to see that year. And I want to thank you guys for coming on for part 1. And until next time, we will talk part 2, and we're looking forward to it. And I want to thank you for coming on.
No, it's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Mike.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Mike.
so much.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you. And in part 2, you're going to hear all about this team. But guess what? If you don't watch part 2, you won't know. So come back to us. For Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.